Yeah, there's a part of us that gets stretched. And the key to resiliency, is how do I come back? How do I come back from those stretches in life? What are the tools that I need? What are the relationships I need? What's the support I need to be a resilient person, to be a resilient man? And that's the journey. That's the work you do as the comeback coach. That's the work I do, is particularly helping men when they get stretched, is to know that they're okay. Yeah. And the elastic band, the rubber band can come back.
I love it. So obviously you're not from New Jersey. So tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about where you came from and how you became the force that you are today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm actually speaking to you from Ibiza in Spain. I've just run a men's retreat here. I spend most of my time based in Australia, just north of Byron Bay on the east coast, and travel the world extensively working with men. And the three pillars, the three legs of the stool for the masculine, are presence, purpose, and passion. And so for me, that's been my life journey. Married for over 40 years. I have 4 children, 10 grandchildren, and have really been leaning into this space of not just coaching, facilitating, but specifically the hero's journey for men. So many men wanting to find those 3 pillars. How do I cultivate presence? How do I align with my purpose? And how do I bring passion to all of my life? And that's the work I do, and I enjoy doing it globally. And as you say, recently lodged a podcast called True Freedom, and freedom from the inside out. So with one of my great friends and clients, Richard Stokes, we've been recording sessions about what is true freedom, particularly for men, but also for the broader audience. And we're covering things like parenting, things like purpose, things like presence, to really help men with their journey and their resilience.
But now, if somebody's seen you today, it's a lot different than it looked 20 years ago when you were 40 years old, right? Because a lot of people, they see people like myself, you and myself, Ed Milet, Gary Vee, David Meltzer. They see where we're at now, but they don't see the struggles. So talk to us about the struggles 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah, great question. And as you've mentioned, and many of your other people that you've interviewed, obviously we come to life, and in our early years we have our struggles. Yet for me, I think the three big milestones for me, Richard, was firstly in my early 30s. My first career for 20 years was as an attorney, as a lawyer. I ran a successful practice. I was married. I had 4 children. And what I realized at about the age of 34 is I'd lost touch with my authentic self. I'd taken on these roles of being a father, being an attorney, being a businessman. And whilst I was, successful in that, there was a part of me that I disconnected from. And so one of my mentors at the time suggested that I actually go and reconnect with nature. And so my wife was very supportive. I went out into the woods on my own for a couple of weeks, took my backpack. And that was one of the first big shifts in my life. And to any of the listeners who feel they've disconnected from their authentic self, my invitation is to find a way, whether it's a guide, a mentor, nature. There's lots of ways. And so I took myself away for a couple of weeks, Richard, and in that silence, in that stillness, connecting with spirit, connecting with nature, I rediscovered a part of myself. And I've really worked hard to keep that connection. And again, it wasn't that my life was traumatic necessarily. And again, we all have our childhood traumas. My father left when I was very young, single mum, working class, those sorts of things. Yet that was the first big milestone. The second came later in my 30s when I realized that I was living my life and I was doing lots of self-development, personal development, but I wasn't actually committed to my practice, to my daily practice. And I know for you, like your practice, your faith, often we sit on the fence, we dance around these things, whether it's your faith, whether it's your yoga practice, your meditation practice. And there was a time in my late 30s when I realized I had to commit as a man. I had to make that the anchor for my life. And so first was reconnecting with myself. Second was that commitment. And commitment as men is so important. True freedom comes from true commitment. So commitment means I choose to have no more choice. I'm all in. I'm absolutely committed. And I know for myself, as I say, I was sitting on the fence. I was like doing a little bit of practice, a little bit of spiritual connection, but that was a big shift. And then out of that, the third piece for me, Richard, was once I made that commitment pretty quickly, the whole context of my life changed. I started to lead a purpose-centered life. And purpose for people and purpose for men is so essential. And again, we can do another whole podcast on what purpose is. Essentially, a purpose-centered life is a life of inquiry. Our purpose reveals itself. If we get present, if we're committed to doing our practice, our daily practice, whatever that is, as I say, contemplation, prayer, meditation, whatever it might be, and a life of purpose-led inquiry. Where am I drawn to? Is my heart open? Who are the people in my life? What are the gifts that I'm here to bring? That real deeper inquiry. And that's what occurred, in my early 40s. Things started to unfold. I ended up actually selling my legal practice and really leaning into this work, coaching, facilitating globally. Lots of leadership teams, worked with lots of corporations, and now specifically working with a lot of male leaders, a lot of men running their businesses, married, mortgage, business, children, trying to navigate their hero's journey and teaching them some of those things that I learned.
Well, one thing because a lot of our listeners are veterans, first responders, and a lot of us, we never realized. I went in at the age of 17, so I never realized that I had a shelf life. And a lot of people that join the services, they don't realize they have a shelf life. And whether you do 5 years, 20 years, that becomes your identity. That becomes who you are. For me, it was being Sergeant Kaufman. And then when I got hurt on duty and I was no longer Sergeant Kaufman, well, who was Richard? And I had to reinvent and reimagine myself. But I think what you're talking about is you talk to your wife, your bride. I call my bride. She's my everything. But a lot of us don't take the time to put on the backpack and go out and just be quiet for a while, because we have all these noises. And, so talk to us, because I think in order to reinvent yourself, sometimes you have to sit and be quiet. And with everything we have our phones, we got our computers, we have this, we have that. We don't have time to actually sit and think. Because even like the book, Think and Grow Rich, it wasn't called Work and Grow Rich. It was called Think. So I don't think you can actually get peace until you have some downtime and quiet time. So talk to us about that.
Yeah. Well, again, and I'm speaking specifically to the masculine, to men, yet obviously this can apply to all of our listeners. The biggest asset that you have as a man, the most important asset you have as a man, is your attention. Where you put your attention, where your attention goes, energy flows. And as you pointed out, so many of us are living the life of distraction. What occurs is when we meet the world, particularly from this place of resistance, there are only three responses. One is expression, one is suppression, and the third is distraction. So we're distracting ourselves. Our attention is being distracted from the present moment. And a lot of the work I do, as you know, around presence is how do I take ownership of my attention to get present, to be present for my beloved, to be present for my children. And the key with really understanding attention is the fundamental piece, however you do it, is to create the space to know thyself. As you would say in the scriptures, as you follow, is to know thyself. Essentially what that means is that we've got to create a relationship with ourselves. Whether you're a leader, whether you're a vet, because that identity thing you mentioned is crucial. And the fastest way, to train your attention, to train your mind, is to train your body to just sit. Yeah. And there's some great body of work out there and lots of great teachers. So if you can simply sit still for 5 minutes a day, and I know that's not easy for some people who've experienced trauma, all of the different aspects of it. But if you can train your body, literally like training a dog, just sit in the garden, sit in the study, sit somewhere quiet. What happens is your mind will be racing, your thinking mind, 80,000 thoughts a day, most of them are negative. Yeah, our thinking mind is an overload. The Hindu saying, Richard, is our thinking mind is a fantastic servant. It's a terrible master. So what happens is this thinking mind will be an overload. It will kick and scream. But if you can train your body to sit, and not get distracted with the phone, with the to-do list, and just start to notice your mind. Essentially, our minds, Richard, are like a very, very fast train. They've been overstimulated. And if you want to stop a fast train, you don't jump in front of it. You slow it down. So it's about slowing our minds down. Sit still. Train your body to sit, not reach for your distractions. Your mind will start to slow down. You will suddenly start to create a relationship with yourself. And that's the key, a relationship with self, getting to know self. Who am I? One of the fundamental spiritual questions is, who am I? Because as you pointed out, so much of our identity, particularly as young men, we go to college, we join the army, whatever it might be, and we lose our identity. We think we are sergeant. We think we are first responder. We think we are lawyer, until we get to know ourselves and realize that we're much more than that. We can do, law, we can do first responder, but that's not who we are. We're human beings, not human doings. And we're reconnecting with the human being in ourselves.
I love that. And something that I tell when my clients, I have certain clients that I teach. I'm like, if you're a guy over the age of 40, 50, you're going to get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. We all do. So why not take that 5 minutes, that 3 minutes when you get back in bed, just to have a little bit of gratitude, sit there and say, you know what? I'm grateful for where I'm at in life. My life is good. So even for that 2 to 3 minutes that you get up and you get back in bed and it's quiet, the house is quiet, you might be able to find a little bit of peace. Even if you can't get that 5 minutes during the day, you're going to get up in the middle of the night anyway. So might as well get a little peace while you're up. But before I want to dig a little bit deeper into presence. But first, I want to thank our sponsors. As you guys know, I was with GNC for over 30 years, in the military for 23. I love pre-workouts. I love coffee, but they all tasted horrible or didn't work or maybe go to the bathroom. So I came out with my own coffee. It's called Vertical Momentum Coffee. Twice the energy, no crash. Best part of it, 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans and their families struggling with homelessness and PTSD. So for every bag you buy, we're actually going to put 12 veterans and their families up in their own house, take care of them for a year, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, at zero cost to the veteran. So if you love coffee with a mission, write coffee down below. Also, guys, if you are a COO, CEO, CFO, did you know that veterans are the best of the best? Only 2% of the population in the world has ever served and protected their nations. So, guys, if you want to hire the best, hire a veteran. And a lot of people don't know that if you hire a veteran, you get so many tax breaks. So not only are you getting the best of the best, but we're also going to teach you how to get hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax breaks. So if you guys are interested in hiring a veteran, write veteran down below. Now, Bodhi, let me ask you a question, because somebody told me on December 31st that I needed to write down 2 words for the year. And I thought that was crap. I thought it didn't work, but I said, you know what? Why not? I'm going to try it. So I wrote down the word intention, and I wrote down the word attention. And everything that I do now, because I block off everything on a calendar. Even if I go play video games, I make sure it's for an hour. I block time out. And it was all because it's something that David Meltzer had said when he was on the show. He said, even if you're good, block out time to talk to mom. Block out time to talk to your kids. He said, because that's the important stuff. And a lot of times when you're a business owner, we're so worried about business that we kind of forget the people why we're in business. And like I tell everybody, what's good is having the big house, the big boat, but then you come home and eating at the kitchen table by yourself. So talk about living intentional so you can live a good life.
Yeah, it's beautiful that you often say that those two words you mentioned. So if you think about the statement "I am," the statement "I am" is I is intention, A is attention, and M is manifestation. Yeah. I am. So where you put your intention, and you put your attention, that's what you'll manifest in your life. Yeah, absolutely. Whatever that is. And again, that's why it's such a great asset for us. The key thing is, again, if you think about our identity. So one of the exercises the listeners can do, and you possibly do it with your clients, often get people to write down, what does the success actually mean to you? Now, normally, particularly, like you and I, Richard, or perhaps you and I 20 years ago, it would have been, obviously our career, financial security, the house, the holidays, whatever it might be. And that's what we could call our resume success. It's all about our achievements. Yeah. And as young men, often that's what we're looking for. Yeah. I want my resume. Success to me is, I want to be the COO, or I want to be the best attorney. And then what I get clients to do is to do another exercise. Yeah. Instead of your resume success, what's the definition of your eulogy success? Yeah. What does success really mean to you when you look at it through the lens of your eulogy? And that's when people lean into exactly what you say. They talk about their relationships. Yeah, they talk about what they gave back to society. They talk about their purpose. This is really, for most people, what success actually means. And when you see it in that stark contrast, particularly again in your 40s, you start to realize I'm just chasing resume success and neglecting eulogy success. And there's a beautiful saying from Maya Angelou who says that people won't remember what you did, or what you said, but they'll remember how they felt when they were with you. And that's the key.
Something that one of my mentors, Mr. Dean Graziosi, he talked about is the 7 whys. Why are we here? Why we don't go? I don't think we go deep enough, about our why, because I think for me, our whys, will manifest itself eventually, but you have to figure out what your whys are. And a lot of them, well, I want a nice house. Well, why do you want a nice house? Well, I want to take care of my kids. Well, why do you want to take care of your kids? And then when you really get down to the 6th and 7th why, that's the real stuff. And, that's why I think a lot of us, we don't get deep enough, especially with ourselves. We stay surface level. We don't realize, all right, well, we got to go really deep to find out our why, because being an entrepreneur is one of the hardest things you could ever do. And if your why is not strong enough, you're going to quit. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's that deeper questioning, getting to know yourself, reflection, contemplation, prayer. And that, we're in this incredible paradox, Richard, where, as I mentioned earlier, it feels like there's a split between the doing and the being. Who I am and what I do, it feels like they're an or, Yeah, it's what I do or who I am instead of an and. Yeah, and again, particularly as men, we come out of the blocks on the hero's journey in our 20s. We're searching for the Holy Grail. We gather, different tools. We lean into our career, and it's very much focused on the doing, the do. Yeah, and the thought of actually leaning back, reflecting, having a deeper conversation with self in your late 30s, early 40s, when you've got a mortgage, when you've got a family, you've got to put the kids through school, it's quite scary. Yeah, and the ego mind doesn't want to stop because it's
I think you muted your mic. There we go.
Yes, that's right. Well, I'm sure they were pearls of wisdom. So what I was saying is that the 7 whys that you mentioned, what occurs is for a lot of us as men, particularly in our late 30s and early 40s, is that we're so busy leaning into responsibility, the pressure of being a father, the pressure of being a husband, so that we've got mortgages, we've got jobs, we've got children's school, we've got to save. That the thought of actually spending time to reflect can be quite scary, because the way we are as men is it's very binary. It's like the doing or the being. And so again, when we start to slow the mind down, what occurs is we start to realize it's the being and the doing. I can spend time to reflect whilst I'm doing work, whilst I'm doing mortgage. And again, on the hero's journey, there's a point when every man gets a guide, a mentor, a teacher, a coach, because you can't do it on your own. You've got to have that support.
Yep. Now let me ask you a question, because like I said, once I started being intentional with everything I do, I'm saying no a lot more. And for me, if it's not God, family, friends, business, I don't have time for it. And I think a lot of us, we say yes to everything, and then we're not, whatever our 4 or 5 things are that are non-negotiable, we kind of negotiate everything. So talk to us about sometimes, saying no can be the best thing for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, boundaries, which is part of what you're talking about, and a big part of, working for men and women and in the workplace, is the ability to say no. And the flip, and again, it's a great question, Richard, because for a lot of us as men, we become people pleasers, we become rescuers, we become fixers. Yeah, we put everybody else before us. The analogy of, on the aeroplane, if the oxygen mask drops, who do you put it on first? You got to put it on yourself. And so one of the keys to that is to realize, when you really connect with your deeper self, not your egoic self, the only question to ask in each moment, Richard, is what's the most loving choice for me? My true self, not my ego self. Yeah, not selfish. Yeah, my true self, which is to spend time with my family, to spend time with my beloved. Yeah, to look after my body, to look after my mental health. Yeah, and if you start to reflect on that question, then you absolutely start to set boundaries. And again, it's this journey from distraction to presence, because one of the key ways we resist life is through distraction. We'll spend time on our phone. When I work with couples, one of the biggest feedback from women in relationship is, can you just get him off the phone? Yeah, he's on the phone. He comes home, he's on the phone, he's, scrolling, texting, whatever it might be. This is a distraction, as opposed to that ability to set that boundary and be present.
Well, one thing that I do is, and I keep reminded, I have a cup that I keep on my desk, and it's an empty cup, and it's an empty cup for a reason, because it keeps me reminded that I can't pour from an empty cup, and if my cup isn't
Mm,
full, I can't give you water if I don't have anything in my cup. And I think a lot of people, if you're a veteran, if you're a first responder, if you're a child, if you're a parent, we can't take care. Like my mom's 79, she's in a nursing home. I can't take care of her if I'm not healthy myself. And I think a lot of us, we work ourselves into an early death, because they say usually 3 to 5 years after you retire, you're dead. So,
mm.
I think that we really need to start, de-stressing in our lives and be able to be there for others. But we got to make sure that we are full ourselves.
Yeah, and the journey, we touched briefly on the egoic mind. The egoic mind essentially is all of our fearful thinking. There's a healthy ego, which is our sense of self, our sense of boundary, and our limited ego. And the egoic mind will always come from deficiency. Yeah, the egoic mind fundamentally says to you, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. Yep, I'm not valuable and lovable. And that's the fundamental belief to shift. Because if you're coming from the place of I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, yep, I'm not valuable, then we're always looking outside ourselves to fill that cup, as you beautifully mentioned. We're thinking I've got to get it filled somewhere outside, whether it's a relationship, whether it's money, whether it's distraction, whatever it might be. And so the key in shifting it, is shifting the belief from I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable and valuable, to I'm okay, I'm lovable and valuable, just as I am, as a man, as a person, embracing, as one of my clients says, embracing my weirdness, embracing my uniqueness. Because if I can love myself unconditionally, accept myself, even with my flaws and my challenges, but know that I'm a good person and I'm a good man and I am lovable, then it's so much easier to look after myself, to keep my cup full. Because again, I'm not coming from deficiency. I'm not coming from not enough. And marketing, advertising, Facebook, all those things, a big driver is they're telling you you're not enough. You're not good enough until you fill in the blanks, X, Y, Z.
Well, my friend, Mr. Gary Vaynerchuk, love him, great person. He got me started on my journey. But something that he talks about all the time is anytime somebody picks up their phone, it's the dopamine rush. It's the same dopamine that people get from, because I'm an addict. I'm in recovery 34 years. It hits the same brain cells as alcohol, drugs. So when the average person is looking at their phone 400 to 700 times a day, if somebody's listening right now, like for me, I know my wife works at home. As soon as she hits that key to log off, I go put my phone in the other room. I put it in the drawer, and I don't go back to it. That's what my cutoff is, usually 6 p.m. But a lot of people I think, will go into withdrawals if they cut it off like that. So what are some steps some people can take to start becoming more, in tune slowly? Because I think if you just said somebody, all right, no more phones. I know if I told my 11 years old, there's no more phones or computers after 6 o'clock, I think they would have a meltdown. So what are some steps we can take to become, more aware and more intentional?
Yeah. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the first thing is to slow this train down. You don't want to go cold turkey, unless you've got a really good support team. And so you've got to slow it down. And that can be as simple as sitting still. That can be nature. That can be relationships that don't revolve around the phone, those sorts of things. Once you start to slow it down, what occurs is you realize that you have choice. One of the keys on the hero's journey is to know the external world, Richard, whatever's happening externally, essentially is meaningless until you give it a meaning. Yeah, we give it a meaning through our filters, through our subconscious mind. 95% of our operating system is our subconscious mind. Yeah, when you start to slow this thinking down, you realize I always have choice. Am I coming from love or fear? Am I coming from distraction or presence? Am I coming from not good enough or I'm valuable, I'm enough? And so it is a little bit of a weaning. Yeah, and it's like anything, any addiction, as you mentioned, yeah, including our addiction to the phones. The biggest addiction in the Western world at the moment is our thinking mind. 80,000 thoughts a day, most of them are negative. We're addicted to it. And all that addiction is the inability to be present in the moment. We're looking for distraction. And whether it's reaching for our phone, whether it's reaching for a substance, whether it's reaching for whatever our addiction is. So you've got to come back to those fundamental steps. And a big part of what I teach men through some very simple practices is how to get into our bodies, back into our bodies. There are certain activation points in our body. The key with presence is its embodied presence. All traditional cultures knew this. The Chinese cultures, the yogic cultures, all of those things. So part of it is teaching people, how do I get into the body? How do I slow this train down? How do I get more grounded and present? When I'm more grounded and present, I'm not going to reach for these distractions. I'm going to have more choice. I'm going to have more awareness, more attention about where am I putting my energy. If you master that, and it's literally 5 or 10 minutes a day, you master that, you will create the life you're looking for, whatever it is, relationship, money, career, intimacy, all of those sorts of things. It's an inside-out job.
Well, also, after, this last couple of years, I've taken a deep dive into the mind. The mind hasn't really changed in the last 130 years. I mean, even back in early 1890s, 1900s, with Mr. Carnegie, they were talking about how your obsessions become your possessions. And now we call it the reticulator activating system. But it's the same thing that they were talking about, that whatever you focus on, you're going to find, whether that's peace, whether that's happiness. So talk a little bit about the RAS system and what it actually does.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's incredible, the neuroscience. As you say, it's just catching up with traditional cultures. So the way the RAS works is, as you know, and as your listeners have probably heard, is that there's a network of neurons that exist in our brain that we program. Remember, 95% of our brain is subconscious. So between the age of 0 to 7, our brain waves are in what's called theta brain waves. And what occurs between the age of 0 to 7 is we're downloading into our software all of our experiences. This isn't cognitive. The frontal cortex isn't developed. And this is when your foundational beliefs are set up. This is when you create, the old saying, show me a boy at 7, I'll show you the man at 40. It's literally a download. It's an energetic download, an emotional download through our family of origin. It's not good or bad, whatever you experience. The fundamental download, and again, it's not good or bad, there's a bigger conversation, is I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable and valuable. It's not intentional or conscious from our parents or our society or our culture, but we're given this message. So what happens is our RAS is still programmed from that place of not good enough, that place of lack, that place of deficiency. And so when we wake up each day, there are 2 trains that leave our house every day, Richard. One is the resistance train, one is the flow train. So if you wake up and your RAS is geared to resistance, so what you believe you experience, your RAS is the activation system where you gather the evidence. If I believe that I'm not good enough, in my subconscious, don't wake up, look in the mirror and go, I'm not good enough. But subconsciously, that programming's there. I'm going to gather all the evidence. The RAS is going to gather all the evidence each day. See, I'm not good enough. If you loved me, you would have made me a cup of coffee. If you valued me, you would have given me a pay rise. If you loved me, you'd be ready for school by now, kids. We gather the evidence, we get triggered, we go into resistance. Yep. And the RAS is constantly supporting that neural pathway, which at a deep level says, I'm not good enough. See, here it is again. Yeah, the kids don't listen to me. Yeah, I can't get a job, whatever it might be. When you flip, and what we know now around these neural pathways, when you flip that fundamental deep belief to I'm enough, to I'm okay, I'm valuable, and I'm lovable, really loving yourself, your true self, you start to gather the evidence. The RAS starts to gather the evidence. Instead of the resistance, the not good enough train that leaves your house, the flow train. Look how beautiful my wife is. Look how lovely my children are. Look how healthy I am. The gratitude you mentioned. This is why these sorts of things are so powerful. Gratitude journals, affirmation. Because what they're doing, reinforcing and reprogramming the RAS into what I would say is our natural state, which is a state of flow and a state of presence. And the more you cultivate that and gather that evidence, then what happens is you start to experience the life that we're looking for, the life of connection, the life of love, the life of value, the life of being ourselves.
Okay, so now for the last minute or two, we are a teaching podcast, so I always like to ask this questions for people like yourself, because even after I get off of this, I'm going to listen to our episode a couple times, and I'm going to see what I can pick from it, what I can use. So you're teaching me, and I'm just very grateful and humbled. I only have an 8th grade education, but I'm so grateful that I'm able to do this and get a bachelor's of science in business. Talking to people like yourself. So if there's a gentleman gets out of the military, 45 years old, brand new business owner, with all your experience now, what would be 3 top tips you advise him so he can actually be a businessman, but also be a good man? So what would be your top 3 tips?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's tricky to narrow down into 3. To reiterate what I've been saying, the big shift for me, Richard, and I'd be interested what your experience is when I committed to a daily practice. That, like whatever that is, as I say, contemplation, prayer, reflection, meditation, yoga. Like as men, true freedom comes from true discipline. Yeah. And so what I would say to all the listeners is just see if you can cultivate a daily practice, even if it's 10 minutes a day. Even if it's sitting with your journal, reflecting, getting to know yourself. The more you know yourself, the more you know where you put your attention, the more chances you're going to succeed in your business, in your marriage, in your life. So that would be tip number 1. The second is definitely, and again on the hero's journey, those of you that have read and followed the hero's journey and watched any of the movies, which all of the Star Wars movies, the Matrix, all of them talk about the hero's journey. Get a mentor, get a guide, get a coach. We cannot do it on our own. Yeah, traditional cultures, men learn around the campfire together. We shared. The key thing in traditional culture is, as young men, it's to look, to listen, and to learn. So definitely get a mentor, get a coach, whether that's, somebody someone professional, whatever it might be. And I love that one you've offered as a third one is the 7 whys. Like I really think that's a great tool if you're starting out, is to spend that time and ask the whys. Like really move from that resume success to that eulogy success. What does success really look like for me? And you'll start to realize it is about the relationships. It is around emotions. It is around community, connection, those sorts of things.
So for my hack, I'm just going to, do what you're talking about. My hack that has changed my life and has changed a lot of my clients is before I go to bed at night, I wrap my arms around my wife, whether she's sleeping or not. I pray for her. I pray for her happiness. I pray for her health. And it's hard to be mad at somebody if you're praying for them. So I do that every night. And then I pray for my family and friends. But then I also pick out 3 things that happen in my day that I'm grateful for. And this podcast is going to be one of them. So I go to bed with gratitude. And I thank the Lord above. Thank you for everything. And then when I wake up in the morning, because I lost 80% of my vision 3 years ago, if I could see something, I say, Lord, thank you. Today's going to be an amazing day. I don't know what you got coming, but it's going to be amazing. So I teach my clients, if you go to bed with gratitude and you wake up with gratitude, you're pretty much going to have a good day no matter what happens. So do you believe, are you a big gratitude guy?
Absolutely. Excuse me. The RAS again. What gratitude? So gratitude leaves an energetic and emotional signature. What gratitude says, is I'm enough. I'm not lacking. That's what's so powerful. The signature it leaves, is I'm already enough. And I'm grateful because it's already experienced. And again, that RAS is then activated from a place of, I'm enough, I'm valuable, I'm lovable. So gratitude is gratitude journals, all of those things. You reminded me, at that deeper level, just going back to your three things, there are three key guiding principles, I guess, that I would support any of the listeners. And the first is to love myself now. And really connect with what love really means, not our ego self. Again, we're all lovable and valuable. We're all beautiful beings on the deepest inside. The second, which we haven't touched much on, is, sincere truth, sincere honesty. Tell my truth now to myself. Be honest with yourself, particularly as a man. And the third is choice, responsibility. Take responsibility. Remember, responsibility is the ability to respond. In every moment, I have the ability to choose. Am I coming from love? Am I coming from fear? Am I coming from gratitude? Am I coming from not enough? So if you learn to love yourself at the truest sense, to tell your truth, your whole truth, and to respond, not react, those guiding principles will stand you in great stead.
I think I've learned so much today. I'm so grateful for you, and I just want to say thank you. So how do we find you? How do we support you? I said I already subscribed to your podcast, left like 6-star reviews. So how do we find your podcast? How do we find your best-selling book that you co-authored? How do we get in touch with you?
Thank you. The podcast True Freedom, it's on all of the normal podcast channels. So please search, subscribe, like. We're really cultivating. We're looking for lots of feedback. The website is bodhialdridge.com, www.bodhialdridge.com. There is a giveaway that we're giving our listeners here, which is a short video series going deeper into this concept of presence. And then also on the website, there is the book is available on the website. And really encourage listeners to, reach out and please, feel free to contact. If you want to go deeper into these concepts of presence, of purpose, and of passion, then this is the work I do, whether it's individual coaching, whether it's retreats, whether it's group programs. So love to hear from the listeners.
I love it, guys. So, guys, if you want to check out this episode, if you want to pick up the T-shirt, the hat, the coffee, go to verticalmomentumpodcast.com. Everything is there for you. And, guys, I just want to say thank you. I think we're on like our 1100th interview. And thank you for showing up every day and making sure that I show up every day. I love you guys. And remember, I'm a big Joel Osteen guy. And something that he talks about all the time is, we have the choice every day to be the victim or the victor. So guys, make sure today you're choosing to no longer be a victim. So now you are the victor. Bodhi, thank you so much. Thank you for your helper that actually got us together and actually connected with us. So when you talk to him, say thank you so much for putting us together.
Thank you so much. I love that, the victim or the victor. Remember, you're the author of your hero's journey. So please go and write the script you want to write.
I love it. So guys, check it out. I'm going to be here in about 2 more hours. Got another episode with my friend Dennis Yu. we're going to be talking about how to crush it on social media for less than $1 a day. All right, guys, I love you, and we will talk to you later. Bodhi, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you again, Richard. Thank you, listeners, and yeah, I hope everyone is getting some nuggets out of this for sure.
I know I did. All right, brother. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.